Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Todd Coons, and on this channel I do all kinds of things photography related, and if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. If you've never been here before, welcome to the channel. Leave me a comment, leave me a thumbs up, maybe subscribe if you like what you see, because always getting new people and new comments, I love it. Whether you've been here before or not, thanks for showing up. Okay guys, I want to talk about one of my favorite cameras of all time, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, so I've had a lot of cameras, and this little x100V, if you haven't watched the channel, you may not know this, but if you watch the channel, you know I talk about this camera quite a bit. Fujifilm x100V. I got it probably 6 months after it came out. I've been using it for over 4 years now. Absolutely love this camera. Now when they announced that they were coming out with the next version, the x100VI, or what everybody's calling the x100VI, when they announced that, I really thought there's not much they can do to this camera to improve it, because I thought this camera was darn near perfect for what it is. However, they came out with the 6, and I got one. I've done a video on it, my first impressions of this, but I wanted to compare the two today to give you a little bit of insight. Which one's better? If you're still on the fence about which one to get, or you don't have one yet and you're wanting to dive in, is the 6 worth getting, or is the V gonna meet your needs? Now before I go too much farther, let me just throw in a little disclaimer as to how I got the x100VI, because I know a lot of people are on waiting lists and they haven't been able to get them. Listen, at my local camera store, I was number 3 on the list. And to the best of my knowledge, they've only had 3 come in. So the first 2 people got theirs. Like I said, I was number 3 on the list and got mine. I've had it for about a month, but that's how I got mine. I got the x100V before the whole craze blew up. It was super easy to get it when I got it in 2020, July of 2020, I think is when I got it. And the whole excitement for this camera and the inability to get one had not hit when I got my V. Now the other thing I want to throw out here about these X100 cameras before I get too deep into it is that I hear a lot of YouTubers talking about how this is a point and shoot camera, and they characterize it as a point and shoot. This is not a point and shoot camera. Anybody who says that it is, I really question their understanding of a point and shoot camera. If this can be a point and shoot camera, then we could argue that anything is a point and shoot camera. This camera has the ability to put it on fully automatic, but you can also be in full manual. You get control of the shutter speed, the aperture. It's got a compensation dial. You can change the ISO. This is not a point and shoot camera. This is a point and shoot camera, because all you can do is point it and shoot it. There's no controls outside of that. This is a point and shoot camera. This is not. All right, so let's compare the Fuji x100V and the x100VI. And to be honest with you, I really don't want to get too deep into all the ins and outs of the cameras, but I want to kind of give a basic understanding of what's different, so that if you are kind of on the fence of which one to get, or should you upgrade to the 6 if you've already got the V, I just want to talk about the basic differences so that you can make an informed decision as to which one is going to best meet your needs. So let me say this before I talk about the differences. The similarities of these two cameras seem to far outweigh the differences. I shot with the x100V for years, and when I got the 6, we went on a little trip to Charleston. I had it around my neck for 3 days, walking around the city, taking pictures, and to be honest with you, I felt like I was using the exact same camera. There was very little, if any, difference in terms of usability. Now, one of the things I said about the 6 in the video that I did when I went to Charleston was how quiet it was. It bothered me that it was so quiet. Well, I didn't realize this, but you can actually go into the menus, even in a mechanical shutter. I knew this about the electronic shutter, but even with the mechanical shutter, you can go in, turn on and off the volume, turn up the volume, and I believe you can even kind of change how it sounds. So I've gone in and I've changed that, and so now when I push the button, I get the same click noise that I had with the V, which for me, I like to hear a little bit of something. It doesn't have to be loud and obnoxious, but I want to know when I push that button that it actually took a photograph. And when I had it on silent, I couldn't even tell. So my first point about this whole thing is that the user experience from the V to the 6 almost identical. Didn't even feel like I had a different camera. Now, the two big things about this camera that are significantly different is number one, the V, 26 megapixels, the VI, 40 megapixels. That's a big difference. Now, for me, I really questioned whether I need 40 megapixels. 26 is a nice size file, and for what I do for a living, what I do with my images, 26 megapixels seems to be sufficient. I don't have any clients that have ever come to me and say, Todd, this file is just too small. I do a lot of advertising stuff. A lot of my work I do with a Fuji X-T4, which is the same sensor as the V. Again, I don't have anybody coming to me saying, hey, these files are just too small. Now, is there a need for 40 megapixels? Maybe there is. Maybe there's a need for Fuji medium format that has 100 megapixels. But for the work that I do, for the enlargements that I've made, and I've made 20 by 30s with the 26 megapixel sensor, and they are sharp, crisp, they enlarge very nicely. So I was a little skeptical whether I needed 40 megapixels. So I guess if you're going to upgrade to the 6, or where do you want to jump in with this camera system, I would ask yourself, do you need 40 megapixels? Because the other thing that comes with a bigger sensor like that is bigger files, which means you need more computer storage space, you need a bigger computer to run files that big, and so it's just something to be thinking about. I haven't disliked the 40 megapixels so far. The images are gorgeous, but I do question whether or not I need them. So big difference number 2 is the image stabilization that's in the body of this camera, which from what I'm watching and hearing, a camera this size, in-body stabilization is kind of a rare thing. So that is super nice. Now, again, the question is, do you need it? I never shot with my V and thought, wow, these images, I'm in low light, they're blurry, I wish I had stabilization. I really didn't run into situations like that. And I shot this at weddings and wedding receptions. I've talked about this before, but I love this camera as a wedding camera. It is just a great documentary event type camera, and weddings qualify for that. So the in-body stabilization is nice. I haven't run into a need for it a great deal, but that may change. I might get myself into a situation where I don't have the ability to put it on a tripod or steady it. It may come in nice. I don't know. So the two big things, in-body stabilization and the bigger sensor, those are the two main differences with this camera. As far as buttons, dials, they're almost exactly the same. The menus themselves seem to be very similar. So as far as using the camera, same, no difference. The screens tilt the same way, the camera bodies themselves are physically almost identical in terms of size, and the fact that I got 2 silver ones, I almost can't tell the difference between the two just to grab one and pick it up. Now the 6 does have a couple more film simulations already loaded into them if that's something that you're into, but I don't know that that's a huge benefit because you can customize those settings and you can even do some of that stuff in post. So unless you just absolutely love the film simulations and the couple extra that are in the 6 are appealing to you, I don't know that that's really a big selling point one way or the other. So let's talk about price and let's talk about availability. The X100VI is $15.99 plus tax, and they're hard to get. So if you want the 6, you're probably going to be waiting for it. It's just difficult to find. And the people who have gotten one and are now selling it are selling it for a lot more than $15.99. And for the most part, I think they're getting it. People are paying more for them. So if spending more than retail price for it is a budget breaker and you don't want to do that, I certainly can understand that. But maybe you don't want to wait because you've been on the list for so long. So if either of those two things are pushing you towards the V, I would highly suggest that you look for a V. Now I will say that they're holding their value as well, and some of those things are hard to find, but if you get on the Facebook user groups that are buying and selling X100s, there's a lot of them out there for sale, and if you can find a good one at a decent price, I would say maybe go for it. The X100V is a phenomenal camera. I don't know that the upgrades on the 6 are overly worth it, but a lot of people love in-body stabilization. That's probably the bigger thing than the 40 megapixels. Now, one thing that I do want to point out that is different from one camera to the other, and this probably wouldn't even affect anybody unless you had both of them. When it comes to how you load the SD card into the 6, let me see if I can show you. When the card comes out, see how the label is facing me? That's how it loads in. The x100V loads in the exact same place, but the label faces away from you. Now, why Fuji turned that around, I have no idea, but it's weird. And it's only weird because I got used to it with the V going in one way, and now with the 6, I've got to turn it around and go the other way. It's not a huge deal, it's not the end of the world, it's just kind of odd because you get used to it. You know, there's a repetitive muscle motion thing, whatever, that you get into and you just, here's how you do it. And I can't tell you how many times I tried to put that card in incorrectly and no, you remember you got to turn it around. Now, something that I want to mention when it comes to the Fuji X100 series camera, whether it's the V or it's the 6, either one, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and this is one of my favorite cameras I've ever owned. I've owned Hasselblads, I've had Nikons, I've had Canon 5Ds. You know, I've had a lot of great cameras. I shot with a Pentax 6x7 for a long time. I've had exciting cameras, but for whatever reason, the X100 is a camera that I'm just excited to use. It gets me energized to go out and create. And I don't know what it is about this camera, but for whatever reason, it just motivates me to get out and take pictures. And being that there's only one lens on it, you can't change lenses. There's something about that that just motivates you to think differently, to compose differently, to move in and out of the scene a little bit different, to get high, to get low. It just makes you think a little bit differently when you're limited to the one lens. So whichever model you choose to get or end up getting, to me it's just a great little camera and it will motivate you to be a better photographer. Let me throw in one more thing before I end. Both of these cameras have a leaf shutter. A lot of people on YouTube don't talk about the leaf shutter. Now, to me, in the work that I do, because I use a lot of flash photography in my work, even when I'm using this camera, a leaf shutter can sync any speed. Leaf shutter is kind of like your aperture in your lens. The blades go out and then come back, and it's not a curtain inside the camera body. So the leaf shutter to me in these cameras are a huge deal, and they didn't change that. The lens is the same. It's a 23mm lens with a leaf shutter. It's just fantastic. It goes down to f2, by the way. Lens is the same, so you can get that shallow depth of field if that's what you're into. The focusing seems to be very similar in both cameras. I haven't had an issue with that. I mean, I don't see a huge difference between the V and the VI when it comes to what the lens will do, but I have to throw in the little plug because I love the leaf shutter. Very few, if any, other cameras, especially in this price point, are going to have the leaf shutter. Now, last thing before I go, here's the big question that I have in my little life. Do I need both the V and the VI? I really probably don't need both of them. I would love to keep them. I truly am thinking about selling my V. In fact, I've got it on a Facebook group right now for sale. I've had a couple of people contact me about it, but I haven't sold it just yet. I just don't need both of them. I would love to keep them. I don't know. I don't do enough work with either one of them that I could consider one a backup. So I'm probably going to sell the V. I probably would be happy keeping the V and sell the VI. But I would probably sell the V. We'll see. I don't know. I hate to let it go. It probably was one of my favorite cameras I've owned for years. That all being said, I hope the video, even though as simple as it was, kind of compared the two cameras and some of the things that really seem to count. Hopefully it helped you a little bit. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. If you're searching for one of these cameras, be patient. They're well worth the wait. Just neat little cameras for everyday use, travel, whatever you do with them, they are fantastic. So if you got a question or a comment, leave it for me, guys. I love hearing from every one of you. Leave me a thumbs up if you would. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, think about doing that. I would appreciate it. As always, you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.